Do you think I'm going to sleep tonight when I see this? Do you think I'm going to be able to just close my eyes and sleep? Why don't I just sleep forever?
I'm 40 years this country, but I can't believe it is happened like that.
The clips you have just seen represents the situation in present-day South Africa. It's sad, but it's the truth. From wherever you're watching us from, this is The Agenda, and I'm your host, FK. Tonight, South Africa is in a humanitarian crisis. Believe it or not, events over the past couple of days has brought the hard-fought and the hard-won democracy tumbling. Tonight on our agenda, we are going to discuss the role of the church. A number of pastors have taken the initiative to provide some sort of assistance to these people. So we'll be looking at the church and what significance the church has over this issue. Is it a leadership issue? Is it a spiritual issue? How will the church deal with this? Stay tuned.
They have reduced the prophetic ministry to useless things. And I'm reminding you.
We had from them. Who do you think you are? You think we can lose jobs because of you? They even put poison in my food.
You're saying that we will stop this service.
Our crime, Lord,
umbhoroka yiwa duxelele ngesixhosa ukuba andinobulawa inkwenkwe andinobulawa
You spoke to Eze that the money
need
she gave
$6,000-7,000 to do that, but that's just the way that it is. Do I have the money? I don't have the money. I have to.
Understand why I do things that I do. There are times when I get so depressed.
So a number of pastors had said we're going to join us for this discussion. But for one reason or the other, they are unable to join us. So tonight we have Pastor Ikolomzi Adonis he's a senior pastor at the New Covenant Church in Mtata. And also we have Apostle Tiamo Mutsepe of the ECG branch of Durban joining me in the discussion. But we're hoping that the other pastors might come through in the course of our discussion. Gentlemen, welcome. Now to start with you, Pastor Adonis. I think we are overwhelmed and overawed by what is happening. What are your thoughts on this?
Thanks, my brother. Firstly, I would appreciate this interview. My take is that we are now at the fruits of something that has been brewing underneath, which we've been ignoring. My take, I would love to go first and attend and address the issue of the causes of where we are here. We know that South Africa is still a fragile country that has only came to democracy after 27 years. And everyone was hoping for a better living, as the slogan of a ruling party that says better life for all. That's where I wanted to start on the surface, that people whom we see today, they are the despondent, marginalized, and the hoping people for a better life. Now, if that is not yet being into reality for them, therefore we have to see to it ourselves. There is a saying that says, poverty is a mother of 2 children. The first child is a revolutionary. The second child is a criminal. So it depends which one that will manifest at that particular time. But what we can see, the South African people were only waiting for a spark, and then the revolt will come out. We can see that people are, it started as a way of saying, free President Zuma. But I can tell you now, there is a statement beyond that. That statement says, we as the people of South Africa, mostly those people who are looting, I was looking at Alexandra, I was looking at Durban, they are from mostly the poor communities, let alone those who have taken advantage, who are having cars and all of that. However, my point is that this is the outcome of some certain ills, which we as a people, we can define them differently. Some would say this is thuggery. Some would say this is poverty-stricken, driven. Some would say it's this because of President Jacob Zuma's arrest. But we can define and say what probabilities do we have in thuggery? What probabilities do we have in poverty? What probabilities do we have in the issue of Zuma? All of these, you'll find that they do factor in, but they will differ into scale. I would rather lean on the part that says it is mostly driven by poverty and the hope that people don't have. But I mean that they don't actually get what they thought it would be in the South Africa that we are in today.
Okay, Apostle Botsepe, thank you for joining us. I was asking Pastor Adonis what he makes of it. You are from Durban. What exactly is going on? What can you tell us from Durban?
What we are having, like you are saying, looting, vandalism, burning. So all of these things are different aspects and different manifestations of different mentalities. So you have basically a political unrest that took place, honestly, a political unrest. And you had a society that was already crying inside it. Am I making sense?
Yes.
So yes. So then all of these things now, they are given a platform to manifest uncontrolled and ungoverned. So you had a political unrest, and that is where we are now going to come to. The first thing that happened in Durban was the riot. The riot spilled into looting. So what caused the riot? What caused the political unrest? What caused the political unrest, as far as I can analyze this, is I can say it is something, I don't know how to put it. But there's a man who spoke about a woman I watched on Facebook. She says, I do not understand why there was so much haste to arrest Jacob Zuma, where the judge Kampembe even said that because of this unprecedented situation, we will need to put aside the normalcy of law. Am I making sense? So she wanted to first justify her sentence, because the sentence she gave for civil contempt is unheard of. And it's actually a white lady. She says, I do not understand the haste in arresting Zuma. Yes, Zuma first said he does not want to appear before the Zondo Commission. No, he did not say he does not want to appear before the Zondo Commission. He said he does not want to appear before Zondo.
Yes, he was asking Justice Zondo to recuse himself before he makes an appearance.
Yes. So he said, please, I do not want to appear before you, recuse yourself. And Zondo stood as a witness and a judge on that whole debacle. He was like, I will not recuse myself. And this never went anywhere. It was like justice just turned a blind eye to it, to the point where Zuma himself just didn't go to court. So now when it comes to the rioting, what now caused the riot? It doesn't mean Zuma has a lot of support. That is what I'm trying to show you. When now people saw this, I don't know, this personalized attack now on an individual, it went beyond Zuma. Why are you guys so deliberate in arresting the man? Why don't, okay, he did not appear before the court. Why don't you put this before? There was a time when Zuma actually handed in a medical certificate that he can't appear. These people were so hell-bent on arresting him. They even went to call the doctor. Am I making sense? So this now goes outside your very scope. The man has already given a reason for not coming. Now, with these kind of conditions, it goes beyond Zuma now. It becomes political, well, not political as in Zuma, but it becomes now spiraling into the marginalized, saying, okay, even if this man is wrong, why are you guys so, I don't know what is the word for it. That is how now you had everybody. Now we are going into the marginalized. You had everybody rioting. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
If
yes.
proper procedure was followed and Zuma was arrested, I do not even think 100 people would have rioted. But it now became so purposeful that it now spilled into a certain group of people, the marginalized, those who can now feel like Zuma to say, you know what, even me, I never get a break. The man was removed from office. After he was removed on office, the law is now following crimes he committed a long time ago. The man is 80. You now bought the narrative
somebody will say
of
a crime is a crime, no matter how you look at it. Even if you committed it 20 years ago, it's still a crime.
But that is where now, that is why I'm saying that even the history of South Africa, a crime is not a crime, because P.W. Botha was let off with the very same circumstances. So that is why I'm saying the issue of Jacob Zuma, the way it was followed, it now bought into the lives of even people who did not support Zuma. It became a black issue. That is why you had so many people rioting. How does it go from rioting to looting? That is where Pastor Adonis have been touching on that. And this is where now I will also bring in this issue that even the poor, there is something that this has opened our eyes to. And I want you to realize this. What we are seeing when it comes to the looting is not poverty. It is the collapse of social structure. And it is so funny that the person that opened my eyes to this, it was a statement made by the one person that I cannot believe, Malema. And he said, before you go to the military, where is the political solution? Where are the community leaders? So we have, this system is so big that it would take an entire book. So now, even if people are poor, if the government was being marshaled through proper community structures, where you first have a community leader who becomes a councillor, who then becomes a mayor that people identify with and they can hear him. We would have leadership you'd have leadership from your neighborhood, from your block to your neighborhood, to your community, to your town, to your village. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That even if there is poverty in the household, there is still sound judgment and there's still sound leadership for somebody to say, my group is not going into town.
Well, Pastor Adonis, I hope you're not justifying that the burning and the looting, are just when you say that the people, the masses are suffering. Now, before I go there, from what both of you have said, let me play a small clip for you from Pastor Pasaka Motsweni, also known as Pastor Mboro. What the two of you have said, it goes, I think, in tandem with what he spoke about during the pastors' protest at the Union Buildings in Pretoria on Friday. Now, let's just watch that clip. Hold your thought. Let's just watch that clip, and I'll come back to you on this particular subject. I think it's worthy of exhaustion. Let's just watch the clip.
We can't just go out Baruti and say, this looters, this thugs. People have been crying, people have been speaking. Nobody heard them. Nobody listened to them. Now they know, like apartheid days, the only thing the state knew was violence.
Yeah. Yes, sorry, now that...
yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I will make a very clear example. You put a car on a mud, or you put a person on a mud, and then you expect that person to just walk smoothly. You can't. The outcomes of the reaction of the people is the circumstances at which they are. So you can't expect a different behavior. When you are in a mud, you must scale, you must skate, you must fall. That is what I'm trying to say. I'm saying the causes are more important than the effects. Because what you see now, this looting, it's just the effects of something bigger, which my brother and Apostle Mutsepe is trying to analyze, that it's a combination of many things. I said to you, it will depend what probability are you leaning on. It's a combination of a political unrest. It's a combination of poverty and unemployment. It's a combination, secondly, also of people who have been waiting and hoping for a betterment of their lives. So that is many things in one thing. Then you can say, I will lean on the probability that this has been long awaiting. Jacob Zuma's issue to be arrested was a spark to something that is already there.
Okay, we are taking a short break. We'll come back and we'll discuss the role of the leaders of the church. Stay tuned. Be right back.
South Africa is in chaos.
I think I'm going to sleep tonight when I see this. Do you think I'm going to be able to just close my eyes and sleep? Why don't I just sleep forever?
Is it leadership or political?
It's not to only pray, but it's to place the leaders that are righteous in authorities. Where? Not in church. They're in those government entities.
What we are seeing when it comes to the looting is not poverty. It is the collapse of social structure.
Jacob Zuma's issue to be arrested was a spark to something that is already there.
The role of the church is not in the office of governance. The role of the church is in the society, where we instill right and wrong. We become leaders as men of God.
This time I can't believe it. I'm 40 years in this country, but I can't believe it has happened like that.
Watch The Agenda this Saturday on the 17th of July at 1900 hours Central African Time as our religious expert speak.
If we had right hands on government, which is the righteousness, which is the people of God, in power, in authority, we wouldn't have this thing.
Apostle, we have people spilling in all directions and making, a complete cleanup of any supermarket, any shop, any warehouse. I mean, what can we do as ministers, as the church? What is the role of the church in this instance? Are we going to sit back? Because the church also has a social responsibility to achieve and to attain. What are we going to look at as a church or as the Christian community, as religious community? What do we bring to the table in such instances?
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Okay.
We can hear.
Well, there is something that we as the church, we need to consider. And it might not sound scriptural, but we are talking about the governance of a country. Are you understanding me? Mm-hmm. So we have China ruled by people that do not want the Bible. They don't yet the governance of China is very high.
Absolutely.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. The governance of China. So I will not talk about America that is media based and everything. I'm talking about the People's Republic of China, where discipline is seen from a child right up. Even the poor of the poor are very disciplined. We go to very religious countries, in West Africa, where you find the presidents being part and parcel of a church. So I want to say this: the role of the church is not governance. The role of the church is in community building. I'm talking about the church, not the belief. So once the church understands its role in the community, where the role becomes placing values in young men, in instilling the spirit of right and wrong. Actually, the whole reason why we have the spirit of discernment is to be able to separate right from wrong, good and bad, light from darkness. Once we can understand that part and remove that aspect of religious governance, it will not work.
So you are looking at it from a leadership perspective, that when we have good leadership, some of these things can be avoided, because this goes into the very fabric of our country. And I think that this is what we as a nation would have to avoid. So for you, leadership must be harnessed from within the society, well molded. Such a point.
The role of the church is not in the office of governance. The role of the church is in the society, where we instill right and wrong. We become leaders as men of God. And I want to show you something. Not just in South Africa, but 3 years ago, there's been a very deliberate misinterpretation of the church, a deliberate disfranchising of the church, because they wanted to get to this level where people undermine men of God. And they've achieved it. Now, when people no longer have that spiritual figure to look up to, they can do anything. Now, where I'm coming in is this. As the church, our role is to build a society. But what we need in government is proper minds, sober minds. A sober mind can allow religion to prosper. Christianity is not a religion. That's why, as you can see, the way I'm communicating, I'm not communicating from the perspective of the church. I'm looking at society. So a sober leader, he can allow religion to prosper. Am I making sense? But if you have let's just look across our borders. We have very powerful, we have a country that calls itself a faith-based country, where the man of God is actually Zambia. The man of God has surrounded himself with pastors. He fell sick. I don't know if he's still alive. Yet Zambia could not accumulate a cent. Zambia is still poor. There was no difference between him being in government and him being outside government. What we need as a country is leaders. What the role of the church is to go back to the community. It is to, I heard some pastors were saying, and now a few hours ago, religious gatherings have been unrestricted now. We can fill a hall to 500. They need pastors to bring people back to their senses. But I heard some people say, no, don't call us now. You know, when the government said, pastors, it's time for you, please help. And some pastors were saying, no, but you closed the church. And I realized that, like the man of God is saying, we have forgotten the purpose of the church. Our purpose is not in governance. That is why even prophets could sit hand in hand with Nebuchadnezzar, advising him. And because Daniel was there, his leadership thrived. I don't know if I'm making sense. Joseph was on the shoulder of Pharaoh. Pharaoh was not born again. But the presence of Joseph outside the governance, it was able to give sound judgment. So the purpose of the church, and I really mean it, I don't know if I'm making sense. It is in the community. It is to
properly, molded leaders.
Mold people back there. You know, have a community that is scared for a child to walk around drunk on a Friday, because there is a leader in the community and there is a pastor in the community. And community leaders coming together, we have different aspects of anointing and we have different orders of calling. So we have community leaders judging men of God who are not called for the community, but they are called for administrative purposes. And that is some of the things that led to the undermining of the church. We had pastors who were saying, yeah, why don't they teach in schools? Why don't they preach in schools? Why don't they pray for people in their houses? But they forget that there's a different order to calling. And we were the first actually to disenfranchise the church. So we must have men of God who are happy to be a man of God who's called to a school.
I like to deal with the fundamentals, my brother, before the outcomes and the effects. In the scripture where, I think it's Proverbs 19 verse 2, the Bible tells us that if righteous men are on authority, people rejoice. If evil men are on authority, people mourn. That's where the fundamental is. If we had right hands on government, which is the righteousness, which is the people of God, in power, in authority, we wouldn't have this thing, because our role as the church, even the God himself, when he ordained us in Genesis 1, verse 28, he says, I put you on earth to dominate, to rule over everything. That was the ordinances of God. The preaching of the gospel, or the so-called Great Commission, was a remedial concept on the initial concept that people of God take charge in every affairs. Now we have made preaching of the gospel as the original plan. The original plan of God was not to preach and convert people. The original plan of God was that we live here on earth according to his ordinances. Righteous people must be in power. They govern according to God. The reason why we have leaders today who are billionaires and millionaires, but they are leading people who are poor, over 11 million unemployed young people, it's because we don't have righteous leaders in authority. I listened to Gwede Mantashe today. He says how stupid he could be. He says people who are looting wants to get rich quickly. How stupid is that? How can a person who is stealing a TV, a microwave, a food, that person does not want to be rich quickly? It is the mentality of the looters. They know that they want, when they are looting millions of our taxes, they want to get rich. So my fundamental point, man of God, is that the role of the church, for me in particular, it's not to only pray, but it's to place the leaders that are righteous in authorities, where not in church, they're in those government entities, so that when people of God are being led by people who are righteous, they can live harmonious life. So that's my fundamental belief. I said to the pastors, I'm part of praying prayer groups that praying for South Africa. But as long as the scripture that says when the righteous people are in authority is not implemented, our duty will be praying and praying and praying. But those who are in power, who are evil, they will continue to loot our taxes. Then people that are on the ground are marginalized. And when any opportunity comes out, you find that type of reaction. Because that type of reaction is the people's hope for a better life. That's my understanding. So the role of the church, I would answer by saying, start to realize your role of authority and of leadership in the communities. You will find that leaders of the church, they only want to lead the congregation in the four walls. But now communities, church leaders, if we were popular in our communities, you should be the first leader to say, good people, we can't be participating on that. And you provide the solution. But because we are not in authority, we are only confined in the four walls of the church. So, and say, oh, God bless you, I'll pray for you. So my take is that if we are saying the role of the church for me is to restore the will of God to the people. How? By acknowledging that Jesus Christ died for us and he was here to restore our behavior back to the originality. What is the originality? The originality is to subdue the land. He even said in other verse, Jesus Christ, he even said, trade till I come, subdue till I come. Meaning, We must be the salt and the light of the world. I don't take men of God as the church, because people who attend the church, whether they are in the walls or they are not within the four walls, they are the church. The lawyers, the doctors, the teachers, the engineers that we are housing in our churches, those are the people who are supposed to be the salt in our communities. I'll make an example, my brother. I'm living here in a 150 unit compound flats where there are about 1,000 families. Do you know what I've chosen? I've chosen to be the pastor of this community. How? I make sure that during the lockdown, I preach on the rooftop to console people. But when it's time to solve the problems of the people, I go to the people's houses, identify who are hungry, we clean the community. That is the role of me being the salt.
Yeah.
So here in the community, I act as a leader. I act as how the Bible said. I even in our meetings for community establishment, there's a time for prayer. I would allow people to be acknowledging Jesus Christ as the Lord and personal Savior. So mine is that if we are saying pastors, they are annoyed by closing off the buildings, I am saying, yes, that could have an impact on how the house of God is perceived, because we always meet there. But our role is not limited there. Our biggest role is within community. We spend 3 hours there on Sunday, but we spend almost 8 hours in our communities and where we do work. So I would love to instill the fundamental principle that God, when he established a human, he never boxed a human to a building called church. That's why even Jesus said, the worship must not be limited to Jerusalem. Then Jesus said, it comes a time you worship the Lord with the spirit and the truth. So if we want to worship God, as Paul said, even if you are drinking a glass of water, it must bring glory to God. It must never be limited to a building. It must never be limited to any limitation. Where you are the church. So the principle that I'm having is that put right people.
I don't want to speak. I'm sorry I don't want to speak about godly leaders when it comes to governing, but I mean the church rising as you were speaking. Okay. I do not, I do not mind having an unborn again president who can lead a country, who understands economics, who understands justice, the judiciary, who understands legislature. Do you understand what I'm saying? So my stand is, let the church become strong. So just in finishing what I'm saying is, if we look at that separation of power backwards, it should mean if the government fails, the role of the church must still be seen that there's a powerful church in this country.
Yes.
So if we had a powerful church in the country, even though there was political unrest, there was not supposed to be looting.
Gentlemen, I think we have to leave it here. Thank you so very much for joining us tonight on the agenda. I think your thoughts have been so immense and immeasurable, and we couldn't be more happier than hearing from both of you as men in cloth. Thank you very much, Pastor Picolomzi Adonis, of the senior pastor at the New Covenant Church in Mtata, in the Eastern Cape, and Apostle Tiamu Motsepe of the ECG Church based in Durban. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. And to all our viewers, we say a very good evening to all of you. And thank you for watching The Agenda. Have a good night.
They have reduced the prophetic ministry to useless things. And I'm reminding you.
We had from them. Who do you think you are? You think we can lose jobs because of you? They even put poison in my food.
Check. You're saying that we will stop this service.
Our crime, Lord, is
Duxelele ngesixhosa ukuba andinobulawa inkwenkwe andinobulawa
You spoke to Eze that the money
we need
she gave
$6,000-7,000 to do that, but that's just the way that it is. Do I have the money? I don't have the money. I have to
understand why I do things that I do. There are times when I get so depressed